Hi there, good morning. It's a grey and damp Monday morning here in South Wales, the United Kingdom. We've had some rain overnight. The temperature's quite pleasant, it's 14 degrees Celsius. I'm fairly bundled up because I was feeling shivery in it. It's lovely because it's so fresh. I had quite a nicely, I suppose, lazy day, I could say, yesterday in some ways. I got some art done. I had a number of things to attend on Zoom, which is always a pleasure with friends and people I know. Had to catch up with Brett again late last night. And for me, it was afternoon for her. And that was lovely because Brett's one of the co-owners of the Facebook fan group for my colouring books. And I think we tried to put the world to rights, possibly, and talked colouring and art and life in general and all kinds of things, which was lovely. It may not be quite the same as sitting in a coffee shop and catching up face to face, watching the world go by and things like that, but given that she's 6,000 miles away on the other side of a very big pond, that we have the pandemic still raging. It's the best we can do, and I for one am ever so grateful for Zoom for being able to do that. And not just there, but the other, occasions to catch up with people and join in shared kinds of events yesterday was nice as well. So it's, it is what it is. Other than that, I didn't do a lot of art, but I started crocheting a shawl on Saturday night, and I decided I really don't want yet another triangular one. So I've gone for a rectangular wrap rather than a triangular shawl, and it's a pattern I've wanted to do or use for a long time because I do like the sort of like the zigzaggy edges you get from chevron style patterns, which is lovely. And the yarn, the colours in the yarn I bought are beautiful. It's a Lion brand one, it's ice cream, and I've got it in the colour Parfait. And in the ball it looks fantastic. You see these colours next to each other, but obviously when you use them, the lengths of the colours vary, and you get, rather than getting a stripy effect, it's more of a, it depends on the width and size of whatever you're making, but you get more of a mottledy kind of effect, I suppose, is what I think I might be trying to say, but I'm not doing very well. You have bands of colour, but it's still lovely, and I shall look forward to using that on the cooler days later in the summer, or cooler evenings, or walks out. And in the winter, on a dry day, I prefer to use a shawl or a wrap instead of a coat. I find it less restrictive in movement. Coats always feel very heavy and bulky to me. So I bundle up well in my own way. I think there's a large part of me that's quite a bohemian hippie chick in some ways, and that's not going to change. So the art I'm doing here, I was working on a drawing in my sketchbook yesterday, and when I've finished this section I'll show you it. You saw me with ballpoint pens, and I was trying to decide what I'd like to do in the way of art today, because I'm at that limbo point where I'm on hold for other projects for a moment because my head's still in that headspace of whimsical cats when it comes to work for anything to do with colouring books. And so a bit of personal art, I suppose, something that I've been working on, is quite fun. And this is based on that one that I was doing of Seaweed and Pebbles, which I do like. Oh, itchy nose, typical. So what I've decided here is, rather than going with the orange and yellows, is I want to use colours that are perhaps a bit more rust inspired. So I've got yellow ochre, and I've got this, I think it's not burnt sienna, it's a reddish colour. I don't know, I'd have to look at the colour swatches I've done, and I can tell you then, or the map that I've done for the palette here. But those are in the sketchbook, so when I get the sketchbook out while this section is drying, I will look this up and let you know. You can see as I'm working on this one, if you're not familiar with watercolours, and I'm only just learning how to work with them, but when the colours are wet they look so much more vibrant. But I am using Wet in Wet here, and I'm also going back and adding drops of just water. Some of it's dried really quickly, but it will still work, sort of. And that allows some of the colour underneath to show through and pushes the darker colours back. But you get this really interesting kind of mottledy effect. And I think there may be some kind of method in my madness here, even if at the moment I'm not very sure what it is. I have my moments, I do have to say. But I like the patterns this gives and the way that it works. I'm still trying to figure out when the paint is wet or dry enough, or still just wet enough for this to work. So I may be putting this in paint that is just a bit too wet still, but I'll just work with it later on. And I've drawn the outlines of the design in ballpoint pen, and I've used a red for these fronds of seaweeds, and black for the pebbles. And I have started adding colour to pebbles while I'm waiting for colour to dry around the image, so that I'm not going to have too much bleeding into different areas, although that could be fun as well. But so I'm looking at places I can start to work, because again, I could have the pebbles touching and allow colours to bleed from one to another, but I'm not really sure what colours I really want to use for them at the moment. I know I want rust and kind of that grey, blue, indigo blue kind of colour combination, because I know that those colours I really like together. And they also are fairly similar in a way to the original source image, those giant fronds of the orange seaweed and the grey rocks. I just wanted to add some more blue to it. So I've used indigo in these rocks here, and the turquoisey blue colour. Is it peacock blue? Again, I'll look at the colours and I'll let you know if you're interested in a short while, once I've got to a point where I can add no more colour. And what I'm trying to do by adding the darker colour is to add it where there would be shadows, or where I think there should be shadows or darker area. Blimey, that's really intense. It'll be fine though. It'll look great there. And some spots it's just a little bit too wet still, or not wet enough, as the case may be. But it's fine. Again, this is something that will end up in my sketchbook with notes, reflections, and other stuff. So I've got a reference to refer to as a redundancy, something to look back on later. If I'm looking for inspiration, or just trying to work out what I did and how I can do something similar again. or if I liked what ended up, or notes on Angela, leave that to dry just a little bit longer, will you? Because it will look so much better if you do. Not so much spreading. Unless, of course, I want lots of spreading of colour. I'm wittering, aren't I? Yeah, do that a lot. So this today is just some of what I'd like to do. I'm not quite sure what I'll do with the rest of the day. I may get my backside into gear, and it's that time of the month I need a visit to the pharmacy, either, you know, today, tomorrow, to pick up my monthly prescription of meds for asthma and so on, which is fine. Part of me wishes they would do it in, like, look, you won't review my medication for 6 months. I'm okay. Can I just pick 6 months worth up in one go so I don't have to visit the pharmacy? Oh, no. It doesn't work that way. Just in case I drop dead, I think, and they filled prescriptions they didn't need to fill, or you start hoarding for nefarious reasons or whatever, or selling them on the black market. As if I would. Is there a call for asthma inhalers? I don't know. They contain steroids, but not in a huge volume or density, no. I doubt it. Jeepers. But yeah, so it is what it is, and, you know, I just accept it. It's, you know, it's picking the time of day to go down, and I may have a look at Google before I go and see what kind of, you know, time of day or how busy it's been today, or just chance it, and maybe you know, just sort of like go past, see what it's like, park up, dash down. So I really don't want to be stuck in a big queue of people. I've got no aversion to queuing, and I usually don't have an aversion to people. The problem is my anxiety, as I keep saying, has gone up in these times, and I'm very much aware that case rates are rising, and that's quite a disturbing rate, actually. And it's too soon to see how many people end up in hospital, sadly deceased. So I'll leave that to dry for a mo before I go on to any other sections. And sketchbook. Right, let me look for there's my guides to the colours and yesterday's drawings. There we go. So here's my colour swatches, and I'm using yellow ochre #1, light red, that's the one, and occasionally a touch of burnt sienna just to darken the colour, though red brown might be a better way. And I've used indigo, and it is peacock blue, and I might use some Van Dyke green in the pebbles because I think that will give an interesting variation of colour as well. I'm unlikely to use sepia or black. Sepia is not the right, it's towards the reddy colour of neutral, the warmer ones, and I'm after cools. So indigo and peacock blue are nice. Prussian blue could be nice as well because it's that more grey tones, that cooler tone, I think. I could be wrong. Somebody will argue with me, say, no, it's not cool, it's warm. It looks cool to me. Instead, I'm not very good on colour theory. And then this, just move this up. So I spent some time while I was at a meeting yesterday filling more of this in with colour and line using ballpoint pens. Yeah. And I'm quite happy with that. It's different, but it's interesting in how it ends up. So this is definitely something I really want to explore further. And I did add some more shading here, and to this one especially, I've intensified the shadows, so it really does give you that look of depth and dimension. I know what I did wrong here. I made the light bit at the top and it should have been at the bottom, and then it would have looked like it was sunk in, but hey ho. And here I've tried adding some black on top of the blue in places, and that really does make the three-dimensional illusion pop out. So I'm having fun with these, and that's why I wanted to draw with biro here. And I'm hoping that even though the colours are quite intense, I should be able to go over the top with biro, or perhaps with white gel pens or something like that. I'll work it out. I'll do another sample somewhere and try something out and see what happens, because that's how I rock with things, isn't it? So here, I've had an idea as I was working. I'm thinking, oh, that's a lot lighter than my other ones. That's fine, because what I can do is pick up some colour and just drop it in around the edge where I want it a bit darker. And yeah, it'll spread and flow, but hopefully not all the way, especially if I drop some water up. I say water up here, I'm not. I'm adding some of that peacock blue. Again, I'm conscious that I don't want these too dark either. Otherwise, the lines I put on top may not be visible. I may not be able to use ballpoint pens. I may have to use something else, but it's a test piece. It's trying to work out how I'd like these things to work for me. And here I may actually, that is not a very wet brush, and that might be the way forward with smaller areas, to be honest. Now I've got some colour creeping in there, which is great. That actually might actually work in my favour. Did I say actually twice? I think I did. My ability to think clearly or speak clearly, they seem to be mutually exclusive at times. Kind of work. Okay, let's set a bit more of this here. Perhaps I'm playing with these too much. And something I've noticed about this paper is I did draw the design in pencil to begin with, to give myself an idea. And the pen lines didn't go where the pencil lines were, so I used a kneadable eraser to rub the pencil lines off. And it seems to have pulled the surface of the paper up a little bit, which is annoying and something for me to consider in the future. So let's do some more pebbles while this is all drying, because I can. And today I had the genius idea, why I've never thought of it before. I used a spray bottle of water I've got that I can have sort of like a squirt of water, you know, a stream of water coming out rather than a spray, as it were, to add water to these wells so that it activates the colours, so I'm not scrubbing around with brushes and so on. Got way too much on that, but not enough now. This is Van Dyke Green, which I thought might be nice as a bit of variation in the colour. To add different tones, because it is quite a cool green, it's quite a grey green. It's a rather nice colour green actually. And just to see what happens really. A bit too much there, that's okay, because I can take some off as well. I sometimes wonder if, you know, I'm trying to be too precise with watercolour, which is what I'm trying. I'm sort of trying to get the shapes I want here. And I know that the gaps in between I'm going to fill with dark, because they would be dark with dark. Dark what, Angela? Angela would like to fill them with darker shadows. Some dark colour. Whether it's a ballpoint pen or whether it's something else. I don't know. I'm certainly not going to be painting them because that would be a recipe for disaster, I think. Wouldn't it? I think so. The hint of blue there. That green is really quite interesting, actually. I don't know yet what I'm going to do with the strands of seaweed here with the white stripe down the centre, that the real big highlight. I haven't worked that one out yet, whether I use yellow ochre or go over to the bright, to a proper yellow, or whether I use something else entirely. I don't know at the moment. But what I do know is I will work it out eventually. What the ballpoint pen is working quite nicely here. It seems to be disappearing into the paint, as in not being a stark contrast to it, perhaps because I'm using such dark colour, not dark colours but intensity of colour. Not really sure. Right, this definitely needs to be a bit more darker and intense, which I can do. Better, that's much darker. So yeah, so I may do that if I can get my backside into gear today. Just to pop to the pharmacy. Other than that, I don't really have a lot of plans. We've spent yesterday and some of the day before starting working through the Harry Potter films again. Go-to set of films. I don't find much on television generally to interest me, though I do have to have a look through Now TV and see what series have got new episodes in. I'm particularly enjoying Prodigal Son, which has Michael Sheen in, and I think Michael Sheen could be one of my favourite actors of the moment. I think I encountered him first in Good Omens, which is based on a book by Neil Gaiman and Terry Pratchett, and him and David Tennant in there as good and bad angels, trying to save the earth from the birth of the devil, as it were, as a child, and it was brilliant. They didn't want Armageddon because they liked the earth as it was. It was hilarious. In that kind of unusual kind of Britishness, British kind of humour, I suppose. And when I saw that he was in this series called Prodigal Son, where he plays a serial killer, and the family are all, mother, his wife or ex-wife, is out on her own, as it were. His son has become a profiler and actually dobbed him into the police when he discovered he was, had a victim in the house, and decided to call the police on his father, for which his father pretends to have forgiven him, but I'm not entirely sure he would. and is playing him and trying to turn him into a mini version of himself. The sister is a reporter and just wants to keep in touch with the father for, well, because father, but also good reporting, as it were, because, you know, as now serial killers are, you know, sort of like popular with people. You only have to look on podcasts and on YouTube for the number of programs and episodes cast about them. And one of those that's really interesting is by, oh, what's her name? Just open my Spotify app. Laura Richards. Can't remember the name of her current, the newest podcast, but it's really interesting because she's taking the view of looking at crime analyst. There you are. She looks at you know, more to do with not just who committed these awful things, why they did it, but she's also focusing on the victims and honouring the victims, who everybody knows the name of these famous serial killers, but very few people know the names of their victims, which are usually women, in many cases are. And she was looking at the case of, well, there's a series of them, the forgotten victims of a serial killer in the UK who I think died recently. His name was Peter Sutcliffe. And the way that the women were vilified and made to seem like they were less than human. And that's up, you know, it's been really, really interesting to listen to, and a very different kind of look at these things. And I can recommend it if you are interested in such things and interested in the way that if what you do for a living is considered a bad thing to do, then you can be seen as, well, you were asking for it, it's your own fault, rather than, no, that's not the right way. They, you know, people make a living how they can in order to survive, and just because they work in a certain way doesn't mean they deserve to die by the hands of a man who sees them as less than human and deserving of death. That's not the case, and they shouldn't be treated that way by police forces and other people who are investigating them. And in the case of some of the women, they weren't prostitutes, but were assumed to have been so. It was really interesting looking at things from, you know, from the victims and the family's point of view, in a different kind of way of looking at the victims and how they've been misrepresented, and a picture that's been painted by the press and by other people of them, and that kind of opinion of people is carried on in society. And then the knock-on effects it has of their surviving family members. Awful. And it continues to this day, because whenever that particular person is mentioned, these awful photographs of the women are shown. You know, their occupation is mentioned, but never anything is mentioned about how they had a right to life. It doesn't matter what they did to earn money to feed their children, or to feed the drug habit that they've fallen into, often through no choice of their own in some ways. Or, you know, it was a choice that was made, but it led them into places that it's very hard to get out of. And it's almost like they're the villains in many ways as well. I mean, it shouldn't matter what somebody does in their life, or anyway, I'm witching on about these, but yeah. So seems like I'm, contradicting myself because I'm saying I'm really enjoying this television program, but it's it's interesting. I've often said that if I ever had, plenty of money and I could take myself back to university, I would consider doing a degree in criminology or forensic psychology, because what makes people do what they do is of interest to me. Not the horror, not the shock of it, not the not the macabre ins and outs of these killers and people who commit crimes and so on. But it's more their crimes and that kind of thing. But it's more why, what turned them into this, what motivated them, and more importantly, is there any way we could prevent a lot of this in the future going forward? Chances are no. But so that would be one thing. Another thing, I'd like to learn to speak Anglo-Saxon, because it's one of those things you can do. And kind of possibly looking at some kind of history, or actually, no, I think above that would be philosophy. Because although I've heard of philosophy, I haven't really been all that sure what it's about. And I've been listening to things, watching things recently, and it's really interesting. So I think that could be something to do. So until now, I'll keep listening to reputable and podcasts and things like that, and where reading articles and so on in reputable blogs and web places and YouTube vlogs and what have you, and just see really what I can pick up and how I like it, and perhaps even read books, although the number of books I have to read is ridiculous at the moment. I added a couple more yesterday to my Kindle, because I know that if I don't pick them up when I see them, it's unlikely I'll remember to get them, even if I put them in my list. It's just finding the time and all the inclination to do the reading, because I get waylaid with things like this. I don't know how this is working. I think it's working out okay. I think it is, possibly. Let's leave some of those. It's going to take me a while to sort out and get done, I think, because it's the nature of this kind of working. There's a lot of time drying needed in between sections, and of course I need to dig out a hairdryer or some such. My craft dryer would be a good idea, so that I can fix the spread. That's an idea, see? Just thought of that, and why I haven't thought of it before, I do not know. So instead of having this colour spreading everywhere, when I get it to a point that I really like, quick blast of heat should stop the colour from spreading any further, perhaps. I don't know, I'm going to have to try it. That could be really nice to do. But for now, I think I've witted at you about all kinds of weird stuff, as well as arty bits, and once I finish this section off, perhaps just see what happens, and that's something for me to do before I hit the shower and get myself sorted. So it's 10:20. So it's not raining. It's supposed to rain all day, but it's not, and so I might strike while the iron is hot, as the saying goes, and get myself out for a bit of a walkie poos and see if I can catch the pharmacy when it's quiet. It does tend to seem to be quiet a bit later in the morning. I think people go there either first thing in the morning or their lunch break, and depending what time their appointments are at the doctor's as well. It's just one of these things. I'm moaning about it because I prefer not to have to leave the house other than to go for a walk and occasionally into a supermarket for goodies that I can't buy once a week, like strawberries, because they won't keep unless I buy frozen ones, and the frozen ones are never the same. So, oh, it's my phone ringing. Excuse me a moment. Here we are, I'm back. That was, yeah. So by the time I got to my phone, it had stopped ringing. So it was no 800 number, which is one of these free call phone back numbers here in the UK. So I did what I do and I looked it up. And it's basically cold calling marketing by a company called Sky, trying to offer people better broadband deals and whatnot. And so I shall avoid that number because I'm happy-ish with my current provider, and I hate the stress, and I keep wanting to try and put my paintbrush in my tea, which is not a good idea, really. So yeah, so once I finish this one, I'm going to say thank you. As I finish this one up, I should say. Oh, tripping over my own tongue today makes a change from me tripping over my own feet. But I'll just say thank you for joining me this morning, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, whatever day you happen to watch this on, and that you take the opportunity every day to find a way to be creative and just to relax and enjoy the process. That's what I'm trying to do here, even though I may not be successfully doing it at times. I actually am enjoying the process. Whether I end up with something that I particularly like at the end of it, I don't know, but we shall see, because there's a lot more work to be done on this yet. So push that up so you can see the whole of it. Thanks so much for your company, and take care now, and I'll speak to you again soon. Bye bye.